All right, Sam, it looks like it's going to be another day, another record on Wall Street, right?
Yeah, potentially, particularly off the back of we've got another deal,
That's
the EU
right.
deal, a big deal, a massive deal, according to the folks over there. So obviously that's going to act as a bit of a tailwind, particularly as we head towards that August 1st deadline. This was a tough one to get across the line as far as the EU is concerned. There had been a lot of back and forth, a lot of negotiations, obviously, to try to get this deal across the line. 15% tariff they're now talking about, obviously, with more commitment as far as FDI into the US, a $600 billion price tag there, $750 billion worth of commitment as far as more purchases around energy as well. So as far as the optics here, it's not as bad as the 30% that had been perhaps on the cards when we were talking about this in recent weeks. And so no doubt this is good news for investors, as they are likely going to cheer the fact that some of that uncertainty has now been removed. So no doubt this offers a bit of clarity. But the big question mark for the markets moving forward is, once we pass that August 1st deadline, what are going to be the consequences of these tariff rates now for these respective countries? Also, of course, on sectors as well, when you're talking about pharmaceuticals, autos, and some of the commodities as well around steel, which really haven't been hammered out as far as the details are concerned. The big one, obviously, is going to be China next. What are they going to be doing there? We've got some talks happening now. Are we going to see that 90-day extension, as has been reported, the can potentially being kicked down the road? But certainly, as far as what we're looking at with the markets, I think kissing 6,400 level at one stage on Friday, coming off that a bit, Diane, but no doubt we have a lot of moving parts for these markets this week. Everything from, as I mentioned, the trade deals with the tariff deadline on August 1st, which is bringing us to Friday. Then obviously you throw the FOMC in the mix. You've got the PCE data, you've got the jobs data. I know you're going to be talking to Kevin Hinks about the details of that as well. And then, not to mention, of course, you've got the big tech earnings.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, it feels like there is just a lot of meat to chew on this week. We start out the week with tariffs, as you mentioned, with the U.S. and EU, and reaching a deal there. I was looking on Truth Social to see, just kind of what the commentary was around that. But it does show significant progress, and to your point, it is below the level that was threatened. So that is a good sign, right? And the market obviously seeing that as a tailwind. And then, I know that you're across some notes on this. The pharmaceutical tariffs are not going to be as high as expected. And that begs the question, will there be some carve-outs when it comes to just country by country and sector by sector? And now we've got China at the table again.
Yeah, that's right. And I think that's going to be the big one to watch, because you remember that it's not just about tariffs when it comes to this trading relationship with China. It's everything from the rare earths, which has been obviously a big focal point of this. It's also about the export controls around chips. This has really become, Diane, arguably a bit of a Jensen Huang story. I mean, down to some very successful lobbying by the NVIDIA CEO to get those chips back into China, which has been a big story behind the company, and also what we've seen in the stock in recent weeks as well. This is also about fentanyl. It's also about their purchases of some of that oil from Iran and Russia too. So there are so many moving parts to that story as well. Are we going to get a situation that's been reported of a potential 90-day extension here to kick the can down the road even further? But what's that going to mean now? I mean, for the Apples, who are going to be reporting this week, obviously they're tariff exposed. You've got Starbucks as well, who's going to be out with their report card too. Another China story.
That is, absolutely, because they want to sell that piece of the business. And then there's an argument about, is the valuation that they're seeking, are they even going to get that?
Yeah, absolutely. And so, you've got a situation where, a lot of the trade folk that you talk to, particularly who have been watching this market very closely for a number of years, seem to think that regardless of tariffs and everything that's going on, even on the TikTok front, is like you're going to have a situation with these corporates where you have your supply chain for China, you have your supply chain for the US. And I mean, we're already starting to see that split happening as far as how people are manufacturing. But, I mean, it is showing up in the corporate earnings as far as, while we don't have the visibility just yet on what that number's going to be or where they're going to settle on the duties, some are already talking about the impact to margins.
Right, yeah. I love that you brought up TikTok because that's seen as kind of a bargaining chip as well in the whole negotiation process. But again, as you mentioned, it's not just about tariffs. We've got all these earnings, and it's just kind of, you feel like, what direction will this go? I do feel like the Mag 7, because they're such heavyweights, that will really set the tone. I mean, obviously we get some heavy hitters on Tuesday. I love the way Jay Woods put it, Super Tuesday. But Wednesday and Thursday really is when the, pedal meets the metal.
Absolutely. And talk about, setting the tone. I mean, look at the bar that Google set as far as CapEx. I mean, what are these companies going to have to deliver as far as their spending commitments are concerned, when it comes to having to live up to what basically Alphabet has come out and said now. I mean, they're talking about $85 billion or so, but, 150 companies from the S&P 500 going to be obviously be reporting, and I think that makes up for over 35% in terms of market value. A lot of the strength, we've got to remember, Diane, also so far when you talk about over 80% beating earnings so far, with just the portion that we've heard reporting, is that, a lot of the strength has been coming from the technology companies. It's been very interesting, and I know, as I mentioned, you're going to be talking to Kevin Hincks about, the state of the economy. We're going to be getting a read on jobs and the PCE later, and that all feeds into the FOMC's decision whether they're going to set us up for a September rate cut is on the cards, maybe. Right. What are these companies telling us about the state of the economy right now? Because the banks don't seem to be too worried about
the banks are fine.
Consumer.
And, what many, they said that consumer is holding up remarkably well. So I think we'll continue to see outperformance from Meta, which is the expectation. Microsoft, it'll be interesting if they're going to have a similar CapEx story to Alphabet, Google, as you mentioned. But the Apple will be that question about how much risk do they have. And they've been an underperformer in the group.
Apple is a two-sided story, obviously, because you've got the tariff exposure. We want an update on that, but we also want to get an update on the artificial intelligence as well, because they have really been seen as sort of behind the eight ball with respect to that. There'd been a lot of questions around this time last year as to, who they were going to partner up with in places like China in order to roll out those functions on their phones. What are the next, set of pipeline of products that they're going to be offering as well, when you've got other companies, I believe, your Samsungs of the world, the Pixels coming out and giving an update on their next sort of product lines too. So I think there's a lot of scrutiny on Apple as far as, what they have to say, and particularly because, as far as the Mag 7, I think, obviously they're sixth, just ahead of Tesla.
Yeah, that's right. I'm glad you brought up Tesla. All right, thank you, Sam. That's Sam Vadas, Schwab Network contributor.